Hello and good morning again, everyone. I want to welcome everyone who's joined us new since the last time I was on. And my name's Bo Norby. I'm going to be your goodness barista, and we'll be talking more about that later. But again, first, one more time, we want to make sure you're set up to enjoy this broadcast at its fullest. So we highly encourage having two devices. One to watch the broadcast, like a laptop or a tablet, and another, like your phone, to engage with us on our polling technology that we'll be using throughout the broadcast to get your insights and feedback. As well, please be sure to go to goodleadership.com/GLB tools to download the program and follow along. And any social posts you put out there, please include the hashtag GoodnessPays. But you are here for the Good Leadership Breakfast, and without any further ado, I want to introduce you to your host, Paul Botts, the CEO of Good Leadership and the founder of the Good Leadership Breakfast. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Bo. I appreciate that. It's bright and sunny inside the Aspiration Suite here at Good Leadership Enterprises in suburban Minneapolis-St. Paul, Minnesota. This is our second time meeting virtually, and I think we've all learned a lot about how to watch things over our computer. We're going to do our best to keep this program moving for you. Thank you very much for joining us. We're super happy to introduce you to Gloria here in just a couple of minutes. Our mission at Good Leadership Enterprises is to spread goodness through good leaders because we believe we've proven goodness pays. That's what we do here at the Good Leadership Breakfast. What's goodness, you say? Goodness is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. And above all else right now, we're trying to role model what it means to thrive together in a culture of encouragement and accountability and positive teamwork. That's what we're doing here this morning, and we're grateful that you're with us. Normally, you'd be greeted by my charming and handsome co-host, Julie McDonough. She'd be standing up on the stage at Golden Valley Country Club. She'd be introducing me, and we'd have roughly 250 people in the audience. Today, there's 6 of us here at Good Leadership Enterprises. We're doing our very best to maintain our 6 feet apart, and we're going to generate as much positive energy as we possibly can. Well, last month, in March, we made a spur-of-the-moment decision to try to broadcast this to you using an iPhone in front of our large monitor here in the office. It was a Wild West experiment, and we learned that it was worth it. We had thousands of people who tapped into this broadcast, which was exciting. We're learning that shorter is better. We'll get you done in 55 minutes today. We'll give you 5 minutes to transition to your 9 o'clock meeting. And then we're also discovering that even though things seem a little bleak at the moment, generosity is very much alive. It's abundant. We raised a lot of money that we sent off to food charities, and we're going to repeat that exercise again today. So thank you very much for being with us. The focus of the meeting today is optimism. Now, we've all heard the glass half full or the glass half empty metaphor. I'm not going to talk about that today. What I am going to talk about is that in the course of doing what I do for a living, coaching senior executives and their teams, hundreds of teams, hundreds of leaders, there's one thing that great leaders have in common. Yes, they're mentally tough. Yes, they can find the problems that are looming in every idea. But more than that, they override all that with a sense of optimism. Good leaders can find even the smallest kernel of possibility and turn that into a picture of success that we can rally people around. Good leaders create a picture of success in their minds that's bright and optimistic and magnetic. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to introduce you to Gloria here in a few minutes. We think she role models that. The other thought that I'll put in your head here is this. I believe that what we concentrate on grows. I'm sure there were people that about 30 or 40 days ago thought working from home was a perk. Now here we sit, longing to get together, to share a hug and a handshake with the people that we care about the most and our colleagues. We're learning how much of our socialization and our happiness comes from colleagues that we respect and admire. They're still out there. We will get together again. And I also believe that we can find goodness in any situation, and there is goodness here. I'm going to ask you to think about that. We're going to have a poll question later asking you to chat in where you see the goodness in all this. Now I want to introduce you to one of my bright and happy friends. Bo Norby, he's our goodness barista, and his job is to whip up the buzz about the idea that goodness pays. Welcome back, Bo.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much, Paul. Yes, we are so thankful to be partnering with Good Leadership on the barista role, as well as specifically sponsoring this breakfast. So a little bit about Orange Ball real quick. We bring bounce to brands through Marketing Simplified. And right now, for the sake of goodness, and during this COVID crisis, we want to help businesses and organizations get through this time and even sharpen their saw, as Paul has said to us multiple times. So we are providing our Brand Bounce Bootcamp online course. It helps you to strengthen your brand and to create marketing messages that connect. So after this broadcast, please take a note. Please visit brandbouncebootcamp.com to get full access. We want to give that to you to help during these times. We know it will help you be stronger as we come out of this. Okay, so regarding my role is to help brew up the buzz around good leadership and how goodness pays for good leaders like you. And in order to do that, we need you to engage with us again on the polling technology. That first question is live right now at goodleadership.com/GLB poll. We want to understand and see who's watching right now, who's participating with us today. And all of this information is going to help us to collect data on the impact of good leadership. So please engage with us through that platform. So the first question, as we said, that is live right now. Please jump on and supply your answer. Is who's participating today? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you at the VP/C-level executive? Are you a manager or an employee, not a manager? And we will watch as those results come in. All right, great, thank you. Keep them coming. Right now, we have 27% sole proprietor, 27% VP C-level. Thank you, it's continuing to change. It's almost like watching a horse race for a moment.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for participating. We appreciate that. Great data. All right, keep answering those. We're going to move to our next question here in a moment. It's a very difficult one, so be prepared. All right. The next poll question that should be active on your device is, are you wearing shoes right now? I know, it's a question that's been burning on everyone's mind as we're mostly working from home. So let's take a look at that information. 50-50. It is morning, so I would also say you should count slippers as shoes. I don't know if that affects your answer or not. Thank you. All right, we've got a lot of no's are winning. Everyone's maybe in some comfy socks, or maybe they have the grips on the bottom as well. Okay, you can keep answering those. We're going to have 5 more polls to engage with today, so keep your device handy, and we will let you know when those are ready. Paul will be walking you through those. All right, Paul.
Why, thank you, Bo. What's fun about that shoes question is that I've been asking every single person I've been engaging with, whether it's a teleconference or a video conference, hey, do you have your shoes on? And 2/3 of them are not wearing shoes. So we proved this morning that we have a bunch of high-priced executives out there that are hanging around in their socks or maybe even barefoot. So I think that's an interesting visual to put in our heads. We're trying to do whatever we can this morning to keep your day light and fun and optimistic. And one of the things that really is exciting for us is our partnership that we have with Twin Cities Orthopedics. We could not produce programming like this unless we had wonderful sponsors. And TCO is our presenting sponsor. And I got this message from Troy Simonson this morning. He is the CEO of TCO, and he asked me to read this on his behalf. Does Twin Cities Orthopedic believe goodness pays? The answer is yes. We're proof of it. TCO is built on relationships. People don't just decide to go online and order up an orthopedic surgery. That just doesn't happen. They ask their friends and family. They ask colleagues and coaches. And they read reviews and do their research online. So that means reputation is everything. We sometimes use different terminology like service and core values, but ultimately, leading with goodness is how we built a healthy culture, a successful business, and a trustworthy reputation. We believe goodness pays so much that we're writing a book about it. You might see that up on the screen there, and you'll see that book soon. We're grateful for our partnership with Good Leadership and incredibly proud to sponsor the Good Leadership Breakfast. It's one of the highlights of our month, an inspiring way to reset and remember why we do the things we do. For those of you who are tuning in today, great job. You're investing in yourself and your organization and your teams. We believe in that at TCO. From all of us here, stay safe out there and have a great day. Thank you, Troy. We really appreciate your support, and Heather and her team for putting all the coordination together to make this successful. I also want to do a shout out to our friends at Lockton. They help us produce a 3-minute coffee break. It's a summary of what we do here at the Good Leadership Breakfast. We'll be posting that online and sending it to all of you who've registered for the Good Leadership Breakfast in the past. Our media partner is Twin Cities Business, and they're helping us spread the word and fill the room when we actually have a room to fill. And I'm really excited now to introduce you to a brave and courageous soul, one of our sponsors who's been with us from the very, very beginning. Our friend Chuck Squires is here. He decided to come into the offices. He's been maintaining his 6 feet. So Chuck, why don't you come on in here and explain to us, why does Robert Half sponsor and how does it work for you?
Thank you, Paul. Really excited to be here. Kind of a little bit about the Robert Half story. A little over 50 years ago, Robert Half in Minneapolis was launched. About 3 years after that, I joined the company as basically their fourth employee. Originally, the organization really just placed accountants and financial people, but over the years, it's evolved into the whole technology and IT arena, as well as administrative professionals, legal staffing, both permanent and temporary part-time contract types. The organization has grown here in Minneapolis from when I was the fourth employee now to over 300 people. And it's a worldwide company, New York Stock Exchange, that's obviously right now very much in the middle of kind of that turnaround and kind of getting economic growth back on its feet. So we all know that good jobs and good employers are most important to making that happen. A few years ago, I met Paul and was truly inspired by his messaging and the whole good leadership concept and values and all that brought to the table. And I think for us at Robert Half, maybe one of the biggest values has been able to bring our staff to many of the breakfasts, kind of the future leaders within the organization, and it's been wonderful to kind of see them grow and be inspired. And actually, we always have a waiting list of those that want to come and join the group at the Good Leadership. I personally have been excited, and I always learn something every time I come to one of the sessions. I think this whole idea of leadership or goodness pays is inspirational to lots of people, and I kind of heard this on the radio here a few weeks ago, where a dad or a young kid asked his dad, "What do I have to do to be happy?" And the dad basically just said, "Just do good." So I think that common message there of being generous and doing good, helping your fellow man, figuring out who your neighbor is and how you can help, I think is one of those inspirational sort of things that we all need to think about pretty much every day. So again, thank you, Paul, for inviting me, and happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. We're going to use the audience polling technology now to help us really wrap our heads around what we're doing, how we're feeling about things today. Last month, when we launched when we finished the Good Leadership Breakfast, we launched our one-question survey of the month. And today we have the data behind how you answered this question. The question is, do you find the business plan in your organization to be compelling to you personally and professionally? There's a powerful point of view statement in here, especially now that our lives are blending together, our personal lives and our professional lives. That's what's happening when you're working from home. We have to have an organization that takes our personal well-being in mind, and we all know we're happier if we're energized and excited about our work. So compelling means that it's energizing to you both personally and professionally. And here's what the poll said. 66% of us, 2/3, say yes, we're working in an organization where the plan is compelling to me personally and professionally. And you might be likely to talk about it around the bonfire when you get together with people that, yeah, my work is going well, I'm excited about it. I think that's good. What's not so good is that 1/3 of us, 1/3 of the people who work within our sphere of influence don't find their work and the plan to be personally compelling or professionally compelling. And that is way bigger than a pandemic. And as we start to figure out how we're going to work ourselves out of this, one of the things leaders need to do is to create an engaging style that's collaborative and engaging the people that work for us to help build a plan that we believe is realistic, that's connected with the customer's wants and needs, and that brings out the best in us. Without that, we're all going to just wallow in this chaos and conflict. So that's part of being optimistic, is involving people in creating a picture of how things are going to look in the future. So here's the next question. I'm going to wait just a second because we're going to open this up right now. How do you feel about your own productivity, working from home or isolated from your fellow employees, versus the expectations that are put on you? How do you feel about your productivity versus expectations? Answer number 1, if you think it's increased. Answer number 2, if you think it stayed the same. 3, if it's slightly lower, between 85 and 99%, or much lower, which is 84% or less. So I'll open this up so we can see how this is going. So we are seeing that there are some people whose productivity is increased. I think that must mean they find their colleagues to be annoying, they're powerfully introverted, excited about focusing, ignoring Zoom messages and emails. What I think is fascinating here is that half of us feel like our productivity is lower, but what I think is really cool is almost 3/4 of us think it's the same or slightly lower. So I think that's pretty powerful, and then you add the increase in there. We're obviously adaptive creatures. So the next question has to do with how much energy are you putting into producing that level of productivity? So if you wouldn't mind going right to the next question, how much energy does it take to be productive compared to pre-COVID days? 1, the same. 2, 10 to 15% more. 3, 16% or more. And less than pre-COVID time. So here's our poll again. It's always fun to watch the data come in. Okay, what we see here is that even though we don't have a commute, we're working hard. 80% of us are telling us it's taking at least 10% more energy, and 1/3 of us are saying it's taking 16 or more. I did this work this morning myself to try to get myself prepared for the Good Leadership Breakfast. And I feel like my productivity is somewhere between 85 and 90% of what it was before. But I can honestly say that I think it's taking me about 140% of the energy to get there. I've never slept harder. I go to bed very early at night. It seems like I'm working constantly. It's important. Those of us who are leaders, we're setting the pace. We're doing what we can to try to help people be optimistic. And it's exhausting. We're all yearning to get back to some sort of normal, whatever that means going forward. Thank you very much for participating in this poll. we are going to repeat the bucket of goodwill exercise. Those of you who are familiar with us, you know we've raised well over $300,000 for charity since we started this concept. Our partnership with the Handy Paint Products, Mark Bergman. Mark matches the contributions from people like you. The team at Good Leadership is going to contribute money that was spent on tickets for the April breakfast. We're putting $3,120 into the bucket right now, and we're asking you now to go to goodleadership.com/BOGW. There's also a QR code on your table handout. So please donate, be generous, and when before we finish, we'll tell you how much money we've raised. It's also important to know that every dollar that we give to Feeding America is being matched by several large national corporations, and every dollar provides somewhere between 3 and 5 meals, depending around where that is around the country. So please be generous. I'm going to remind you that during the presentation by Gloria, you can text in questions, you can use the chat function or the poll, and send questions into Bo. He and I are going to cooperate, and we'll figure out how to get your questions to Gloria during this time. So, without further ado, there's a reason why Gloria Perez is with us today. Even though she and I talked about this 6 months ago, I think Gloria Perez in some ways kind of represents the color of my jacket. Sort of ever-presently bright and optimistic and exceptionally worthy of being followed. She's got a remarkable story. I'm going to invite Gloria in right now. I'm going to give her the mic. There's nothing glamorous about how we're going to do this. She's going to sit down, and I'm going to give her the mic, and she's going to put it on.
All right. Thank you, Paul. I'm going to put that on there. Hope that works.
Thank you.
Sounding okay?
Yep. Good luck. Have fun.
Awesome. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I'm so grateful to Paul for having the innovation to have this remotely, and I have to say I wish we were all in the same room. The fact that we're not is clearly a sign of the times. The pandemic is clearly global in nature, unprecedented, and at times like this it can be difficult to feel grounded. So for me as a leader, when I'm feeling stressed, I really use my values to help ground me. And I use those values so that when I'm working with team members, they are inspired to see that we are all resilient and that we will get through this temporary crisis. The values that I've acquired over my career and through life are these, and they're the ones that I'm leaning into now. Empathy, focus, authenticity, self-awareness, agility, and optimism. So when I was 10, my father died. The grief and shock of that experience was really buffered by the strength and resilience of my mother. She was working as a secretary, all of a sudden raising 3 girls on her own, and she knew she needed to increase her income in order to provide for the family. So my mom went back to school part-time. So here she is working full-time, going to school part-time, and I will say that that experience was difficult for all of us. I went from a stable, 2-parent, 2-income family to a mom that was juggling multiple responsibilities. I'll say that I struggled. But that experience taught me the value of empathy. It made me realize that, in fact, none of us go through life unscathed, and that we are all going to experience challenges in life. And when we experience challenges, we're going to need the helping hand of individuals or a kind word. And frankly, throughout life, hopefully we'll be able to provide the same. And so very quickly, my dad died in July of '76, and my mom needed to figure out how I was going to be cared for before and after school. So because of an administrator and the caring concern of a family that we did not know, my mother was able to leave me at this family's house before and after school, literally on the way to work. And the generosity and kindness of that family made such a difference in our life. I can't thank them enough, and to this day, we're still friends. That's just one example of how important empathy is in the world. Now, with my mom as an example of determination and with her commitment to education, I knew that skipping college wasn't going to be an option, but I also know that I needed to focus. And so I literally came all the way to Minnesota to go to college. so that I could just sort of be in that mindset of my own education. So I went to McAllister. I paid for my education through Pell Grants, working at the school, and then working full-time as well as a waitress at a local restaurant. Well, when I graduated from college, I was actually given the opportunity to buy a franchise of the restaurant that I worked at. Now, that was a huge stretch for me to consider, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that I would learn and grow, and frankly, I didn't think that I had much to lose. And so I did it. I bought a franchise of this restaurant. And it's the restaurant business that really taught me the importance of focusing, because I was responsible for the whole operation from front to back, multiple crises every day, and you really needed to be disciplined about what you were going to focus on. Well, as a business owner, and even to this day, people are really my primary concern. I know that anytime you work with people, you also work with problems. And in the restaurant business, the kinds of problems that people tended to have were things related to poverty. So it was either affordable housing or childcare, or more seriously, it could have been things like domestic violence or depression or addiction. And so I have one story I wanted to share, which is about a cook who didn't come into work one day. His father called to say that he would not be coming and that the family needed my help. What I came to learn was that my cook was an alcoholic and he had relapsed. And the family wanted me to participate in an intervention for the cook. Well, that was something I'd never done before, and I was obviously terrified to actually participate in that process, but I did. And I did it because people matter. And the restaurant business taught me the importance of triaging and focusing on what's most important and letting the other stuff go. And I'm happy to say that there was a successful intervention, and he got back on track, came to work, and ended up going back to school, so that was awesome. Authenticity and self-awareness are values that I honed while being the executive director of Jeremiah Program, which is a self-sufficiency program, a two-generation strategy to end poverty that started in Minneapolis in 1998. Now, at that time, I was recruited to lead and build that organization. And I didn't have any goodwill built in the community. People didn't know me as a leader in Minneapolis. And so as I was interacting with potential partners or donors, I literally had to be authentically myself. I had to let people know what my life experiences were, what my work experience was, what my vision was for the organization, and I wanted to enlist their help and partnership. I needed to be really self-aware about what my weaknesses were so that I could surround myself with people that had relationships and skills and knowledge that I didn't have. And it's that self-awareness that has really served me well through life. At Jeremiah Program, when we started, it was 18 residential units for single moms and their kids. We had integrated early childhood services, and so we had waiting lists for long periods of time. So we expanded the Minneapolis campus from 18 to 39 units. And then shortly thereafter, leaders from St. Paul asked us if we would go to the East Metro area. So we did a typical feasibility study and launched a campaign very successfully. So what that meant was, as an organization, we doubled our impact, but we also doubled our operating costs and doubled our capital exposure. Well, the completion of that campaign was at the height of the financial crisis in 2008. So all of a sudden, here we are. I'm trying to think about how I'm going to deliver on the promise of impact to the community, while also making sure that I don't overextend the organization, making sure that we can, in fact, operate successfully. So I was trying to think, well, would I cut staff? Would I delay certain programming? Well, what I did is I pulled together people in the community, whether it was the families that we had been serving or staff or the board, and together we came up with some great solutions. We ended up increasing the caseload of staff to work with families, which was doable, and we did decrease the services that we had externally for security, which were quite costly. But we increased the engagement of volunteers to work with families and give them support, and we increased the services of volunteers to provide hospitality, which was a more affordable and equally effective way of protecting the campus and the families. And so those decisions are decisions that I never would have come to on my own. They ended up being a part of the model of the organization going forward, and really ended up being a powerful part of how we do our business. Well, agility is definitely something that I also learned at Jeremiah Program. Actually, I was an Ascend Fellow at the Aspen Institute as a result of my role at Jeremiah. And through Ascend, which is a hub for breakthrough ideas that help move children and the adults who support them, to move them to economic self-sufficiency and well-being. And so when I was at Ascend, I was challenged to think about how Jeremiah could continue to serve more families in an innovative way through collaboration and partnerships. So it was through the fellowship that I started to think about how Jeremiah could do this. I started to imagine Jeremiah Program without walls. And I developed a partnership with a college president from Boston, and he and I ended up starting a initiative in Boston where Jeremiah was supporting young women with children who were going to college. And through partnerships, kids were being cared for, women were getting affordable housing in the community, and that decision ended up changing Jeremiah's growth trajectory. So today, Jeremiah Program has both residential and non-residential programming around the country. And we moved from services just in Minneapolis to now having a presence in 7 cities across the country. So, I think about the way in which we're having to be very agile today with COVID-19. I mean, the lessons that we're learning, I think about our organization. We had to move very quickly in those early days of the pandemic, trying to figure out how we were going to change our business, keep our staff safe. And that is what good leaders do. They are agile and flexible. Now, after 20 years of being with Jeremiah Program, actually I'm going to go back to this agility. After 20 years of being with Jeremiah Program, I decided that it was time for me to move on. I was feeling a little restless. There were other things that I wanted to do, and I knew that if Jeremiah was going to get to the next level, it would need to engage a new leader, somebody with great energy, somebody with new ideas, a fresh perspective. And so the board and I developed a succession plan, and I ultimately took a sabbatical from the organization and was going to take time to engage in what I called a wisdom tour to interview people that I have long admired in the community. Well, this wisdom tour was going to be to understand what inspires people, what leadership habits they have, and as the saying goes, life happens, and I didn't execute that plan the way that I thought I would. The reason is that my oldest sister from San Antonio, Texas, was diagnosed this last summer with an inoperable brain tumor. And so the time that I was going to spend on my wisdom tour ended up being time that I spent going home to support my sister and my family. The experience offered me an education that I never would have expected. The wisdom that I gained was about the grace of letting go. I learned about the importance of small acts of kindness, and I learned about how to really focus on what's important and realize that you can just let the rest go. Those lessons made a huge difference to me, and I don't regret any of the time that I spent there. So my sister died in October, and after that, I knew that I still needed that time to decompress before re-engaging in the work world. So I took that time, traveled a little bit, read a little bit. I did have some of those interviews that I had thought about in the wisdom tour. And as a result, I ended up taking the job of CEO at the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Women's Foundation, it is the first statewide women's foundation in the nation. The mission is to advance innovation to drive equity, gender and racial equity across the state of Minnesota. In addition to grant making, the foundation invests in leadership, in research, and in policy to change systems so that women and girls and all people have the power to create and lead safe, prosperous lives. Now, this mission is clearly aligned with my values. I absolutely am so excited to be there. You know, when I think about what's going on in the community with the pandemic, we are seeing that the very people that the foundation is serving are the people that are most impacted as a result of this program. A couple of the, as a result of the initiatives that we support. A couple of initiatives that I tell you about. One is that in 2011, the Women's Foundation launched the Minnesota Girls Are Not for Sale campaign. Now, this was an initiative to end sex trafficking across the state of Minnesota. It was a community-wide collaboration, and together, we ended up changing laws, making grants, conducting research, and mobilizing the community so that we could end this horrific crime. Another example of an initiative of the foundation is currently happening called the Young Women's Initiative of Minnesota. And this initiative is a one-of-a-kind partnership with the governor's office, and we're bringing together young women from around the state of Minnesota who are identifying problems and solutions in their community. And so it's everything from investing in STEM education for young women to investing in violence prevention through healthy relationship education to investing in leadership in young women across the state of Minnesota. Currently, actually just recently, the foundation conducted research on how older women are faring in the state of Minnesota. And what we learned is that inequities compound over a lifetime. And when you think about specifically the health disparities that women may face early in life, they can turn into chronic illnesses, most often illnesses that women are trying to manage with fewer resources. And so I'm so excited to be able to advance those kinds of initiatives through the program. Now, as a leader, I followed another great leader, a woman named Lee Roper-Batker. And Lee was a woman that I have long admired and considered a mentor in the community. Lee knew that in order to create gender equity, you have to create racial equity and vice versa. Lee taught me that a rising tide does not lift all boats. In fact, unless you pay attention to the conditions, some boats may capsize. She taught me about the intersecting identities of individuals and communities and how those identities impact their access to opportunity and well-being. An example of that would be that when you look at pay equity, women have made great strides. But if you specifically look at Latinas and Native American women, on the dollar compared to white men, they make 54 cents. White women make 82 cents on the dollar compared to white men. Now, when you break down the data like that, you have far more insight to that problem. You can recognize that problems and solutions can exist in the same place. And that is one of the lenses that the Women's Foundation uses when looking at community issues. The Women's Foundation is very concerned about women on the margins. We are very focused on changing systems of inequity that keep some boats afloat while others flounder. We are very focused on highlighting the experiences of women who are women of color, indigenous, women with disabilities, rural women, elderly women who have not had the kinds of opportunities that others have had. Women who have been impacted by poverty long before this pandemic started. But in the face of that, the foundation is very optimistic. You know, this pandemic, as I said, is highlighting those inequities now more than ever. And I want to believe, and I do believe, that as a result of those inequities being highlighted, others are going to join us in addressing those issues sooner rather than later. And that is where my optimism lies. So as I think about the future, I think about how I'm going to continue to lean into these lessons that I've learned over the course of my career. When I'm feeling stressed, I'm going to remember to have empathy for others and for myself. When I'm dealing with the challenges of every day, I'm going to remember to be flexible and to try to stay focused. And when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to authentically share that with people so that they know when they're overwhelmed, they can authentically share that with me too. And as I think about the work that we are talking about here at the Good Leadership Breakfast Series, I know that goodness matters. I know that people care, I know that people are kind, and I know that we will get through this time together. So I wish you safety and good health.
Excellent. I'll take the mic back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll take that back too. I couldn't help but think of the research that we did last month at the Good Leadership Breakfast. We talked about resiliency, our ability to recover quickly, to stay positive in setbacks, and the ability to spring back into shape. And I challenge you to work on your resiliency. As we're getting ready to go to the interview, I'm going to hand this to Bo. Let's do our next poll.
Sounds great, Paul. Okay, so as Gloria and Paul get ready for the Q&A session, we have poll number 6, question number 6 for you guys. It is, how well have you managed your resilience since COVID-19? The options are, my resilience is the same, my resilience has increased, and my resilience has decreased. So that poll should be live and active for you to answer right now, and we're excited to get some information in. Excellent, thank you. Thank you so much for participating. We still have data coming in. The bars are moving. Again, how well have you managed your resilience since COVID-19 has started? My resilience is the same, my resilience has increased, or my resilience has decreased. It's great to see that majority, overwhelming majority, that the resilience has increased. That says so much about what this is doing to our character and how we're responding to this. As Paul said earlier, we are adaptive creatures, and the idea is through goodness that this should be the results we're seeing. Excellent. Thank you so much. Continue to participate. Paul and Gloria are going to be jumping in here for the Q&A session, and we will be polling from the questions that you guys have sent in. Thank you for sending all the great questions. We'll get to those in just a bit.
Okay, now on to the clumsy microphone exercise. We're going to go right to the questions that came in from our audience, and I'm going to start by just asking you, can you tell us how the pandemic is actually impacting the people served by your foundation? And then I suppose the second part of that is, how can we help?
Right. So one of the things that we have seen is that the sheltering in place has created a lot of issues for women who have suffered from mental illness or have been victims of sexual assault or domestic violence.
Okay.
So that's very concerning to us. The other is that we are concerned that the pandemic is disproportionately impacting African American communities.
Sure.
So that is the other issue. But I think these are long-standing issues that finally people are going to have to address.
Yeah. Well, I think I want to know, Where did you learn this deep sense of purpose you had in serving others? I heard a little bit of that in your story from your mom. That's a question that came in here. Would you just recount that for us?
Well, the deep sense of purpose, so I am a descendant of immigrants from Mexico. My grandparents on my father's side are both from Mexico. And they worked rigorously as immigrants in all kinds of jobs nonstop. And so there was that sense of just sort of productivity, right? But they were very connected to their faith. They volunteered in the community. They were very generous. And when my father died, the wisdom that he left with me was that things will happen in life that you can't understand, and it's your job to just do good. Be yourself. Figure out what your purpose is, and everything else will fall into place. And so that has been cultivated through my life, again, through my family, through other leaders that I've known.
Oh, that's so wonderful that you had that from your dad when he died when you were so young.
Mm-hmm.
That's really special. Let's talk about career mistakes. Can you recount a career mistake that really helped you grow into the leader you are today?
Yes. So I think, again, with the idea of focus and being very, very planful, one of the mistakes that I had early on was being tactical as opposed to being strategic.
Okay.
And so what that really meant was not planning years in advance,
Mm-hmm.
not having a strong, compelling strategic plan that we could live into.
Okay.
I would say that was probably the biggest mistake.
Okay, so our poll question today was about that, about people having a compelling plan that they buy into and believe in. So can you give us maybe the 1-minute summary of how you went about building the plan that you're operating under now?
Yes, so the plan that we're operating under now is as a result of listening sessions that the Women's Foundation did around the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
So we talked to all our various constituents, and we know that, again, problems and solutions are found in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we listened, the foundation got very excited about how we could partner with communities to invest in the solutions that they see.
Sure.
So we see the possibility in it, we see the partnership in it, we know that we don't have to solve it all on our own, but we can convene people and with the platform of philanthropy, shine a light to bring people along to truly make a difference, because none of these problems are going to get solved alone by one organization.
Well, we proved with the Goodness Pays research that having a collaborative, engaging, strategic planning process that develops a compelling plan is the best way to ensure that goodness will actually pay. And so it makes my heart sing that you said that. Here's the question that we've been ending every one of these interviews with, and that is, can you think of a specific example in the life of your leadership where you know for sure that goodness pays?
Yes, well, as I said, I had to understand what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And fundraising is something that I did not know when I started at Jeremiah Program. And there are philanthropists in this community that opened up doors and established relationships for me with people that I would have never otherwise come into contact with. And those relationships have paid in terms of advancing the initiatives that I have always cared about. So whether it's an initiative that I'm working on now at the Women's Foundation or others that I'm volunteering in, to be able to have those relationships with people who have the capacity to invest, who want to do good, is something that I'm very grateful for.
Well, thank you very much, Gloria. We really appreciate it. And as part of you appearing here today, our friends at Bremer Bank, Julie, would normally be here handing out a $500 check. And the organization that you chose to give it to, not surprisingly, is the COVID-19 Women and Girls Response Fund at the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. We're so grateful you were here to join us today.
Thank you.
So we promised that we would end with 5 minutes to go during the meeting. So what I'd like to do now is to announce to you how much money that we've raised through the online Bucket of Goodwill. I'm going to invite my friend Bo back in here.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, thank you everyone for your generosity. This is great. Online, you've given $940, plus the match from Mark Bergman at Handy Paint Pill. That's $1,880, plus the ticket fees of $3,120, equal $5,000 being given to Feed America, plus all of the multiplication that's going to happen there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and what that means is that we have given somewhere between 15 and 25,000 meals by doing the Good Leadership Breakfast today. So we're exceptionally grateful for your generosity. Now, in order to prepare us for what's coming next, I'd like you all to think about this question. Where do you see goodness in all of this? And you know what I mean by all of this. Where do you see goodness? We're going to build on this idea over the next 30 days and have something special for you next month. So please text it in, tell us what you see. You'll be hearing this question from us many times over the next month. So my coaching challenge for you based on what we've heard today. It's wonderful to see our resilience rising. What we need to do is to take care of ourselves. It doesn't mean being selfish, but it means that to fight back the blues and all the things that happen during a time like this, we need to be self-aware and self-caring and self-compassionate to be good leaders. I also want to challenge you to really see the future that you want to see. It's super easy to get mired down in short-term thinking and to be depressed about some of the things that are happening. But good leaders know how to see the future they want to see, and they stay focused on it every moment, when they get out of bed, when they go to bed at night, and that's what we need you to do right now. And then also, please share with people. Where is the goodness in all of this? We will get through this. This is not the end of the road. It's just a big curve that we need to figure out how to navigate, and we're going to try to help you do that with future programming. Next month, I'm happy to say Brian Cornell is still committed to us, but we're going to postpone the May meeting to December. We believe we'll be able to have a large gathering in December. As soon as we figure out the exact date, we're going to have a heck of a party. We're going to give away a lot of money to charity, and Brian wants to be able to come and join us with confidence. As you might imagine, he's one of the highest profile, one of the most important executives in the United States of America these days. We need to let him do his job right now. I also want to let you know that if you're intrigued by goodness and by good leadership and how to get better, we're doing these Wednesday webinars. They've been really well received. We've done 4 of them now. The 5th one is this coming Wednesday, next week. The subject is preparing your team for the upturn. Thank you very much for joining us. We're so grateful that you took the time to tune in, whether it's on your phone or your iPad or your desktop, whether you got shoes on or not. We're super happy that you decided to help us spread goodness, because goodness pays. Have a fantastic weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.